welcome to this video coverage of the final round for the candidates tournament. And of course the tournament is decided, but still games to be played. And yeah, here we have got a game between Aronian playing white and Karjakin playing black. Aronian, one of the pre-tournament's favorites, probably the favorite of the tournament, didn't really turn up to be in the best shape possible, and with the loss he suffered yesterday against Karjakin, he even fell back to 50% score. Karjakin also on 50%. He had some chances yesterday to beat Anand, but at the end it was a draw. Yeah, what is this game about? Yeah, there's also money involved, prize money, and this game, if this game has a winner, it means that the winner would get like substantially more money. It's about what is it, $40,000 difference. So it's quite some incentive to win, certainly. Okay, let's see what happens. Aronian playing, whoops, e4. Yeah, not a finger failure, probably intended. He does not do this very often. He had played e4 in a training match against Kromnik a while back, much to the surprise of all spectators. But okay, sometimes he does that. Let's see what happens. c5. Okay, Karjakin is playing e5 and c5. The Najdorf is his main reply against e4. And Aronian playing knight c3, surprising even more. Yeah, here Karjakin, of course, being a Najdorf player, has a slight move order issue. He would like for most anti-Sicilians, the close Sicilian and other lines, to play knight c6. But the problem is that after knight f3 or after knight e2, oops, come on. He cannot go back to a Najdorf anymore. This is no problem for the, let's say, Sveshnikov player. We can actually go to the Sveshnikov like that. Or let's say, if you go with this move order, you have other options, but it's not going to be a Najdorf with the knight on c6. The Najdorf player usually goes d6 or a6. a6 is actually quite an interesting move. It's not really bad at all. Just feels a bit slowish with a6, especially after a move like f4. You sort of ask yourself, really a6? Couldn't I do something more, let's say, oriented towards central control? Still, it's not bad. It's just a bit risky. Yeah, well, he went d6. And now Aronian, yeah, you could expect a move like f4 here, but he played bishop c4, which basically shows that this is the kind of game that, yeah, leaves theory quite immediately. The last time I saw this kind of setup was probably in some under 12 championship in the, let's say, one of the lower boards. Just a very simple development kind of move. But okay, you can do that. a3, keeping some space here for the bishop. e6, d3. Yeah, it's all very conservative what white did here. He gets his pieces out and decides later what to do. It looks very strange, to be honest, from a white perspective. But this is a perfectly normal setup if you would have this with colors reversed in the English. Absolutely no one, I just show that, absolutely no one would bat an eye if, let's say, we have this position. Let's say something like that is a perfectly normal way to play as black against the English. And just keep in mind this setup, yeah? Just think of this. And now look at the game here. Can put this on the board. It's perfectly identical. In the other position we had h3 played because bishop, let's say h6 played because bishop to g5 was an idea. h3 of course is a move that you can play in this structure, but it's not really serving a direct purpose. So what Aronian just did is he gets his pieces out and only at a later stage decides on a plan. Of course, compared to the English, black has not fear and shadowed the bishop. b5, knight e2. Yeah, this is just the same as in other games in the double king pawn openings. The knight on c3 is very often not so well placed. You want to get it over, let's say here, and now play c3 and d4. And if this would actually happen, we would get a position that could have been easily arising from other openings. It can easily transpose to French structures or even to Ruy Lopez structures. If black would play the move e6, e5 in the next couple of moves, it's a pretty ridiculous move, to be honest, because it just gives this knight a nice square. But this would actually look like typically like a typical Ruy Lopez closed Spanish type of stuff. Yeah, okay, e5 is, as mentioned, nonsense, of course. Black is playing d5, keeping the pawn on e6 and pushing for d5 in the center. Yeah, of course, white does not want to exchange here on d5 or anything. He wants to grab the space. Played e5 and now c3. Of course, it would be very nice if white would manage to play d4. Then he would have a French structure with the bishop being somewhat passive on b7, and white can actually rather quickly get the bishop to a good diagonal back pointing towards h7. So d4 is I think a slight positional threat, and this is why Karjakin plays d4 himself, trying to prevent that, or trying to is the wrong expression. He really prevented d3 to d4. White took and bishop f4. A cause for concern might be the d4 pawn. It could be a weakness at some point, and you have conceded the e4 square. So sometimes white may use this square for a knight. Knight c5 played, and rook to c1. This is all fairly logical. And b4. Yeah, black is trying to play on the queen side. Yeah, well, where else? You cannot do anything on the king side, and well, the queen side is your only play that you have. So b4 makes sense in this way. And now it's an interesting moment. Aronian now plays an interesting tactical move. He plays bishop to g5. Yeah, looks weird at first, but well, there is something hanging on g5. I think the next move by Karjakin is probably a mistake. He plays b3. Looks like an aggressive move, but I think it's backfiring in a way. Maybe you should have just taken on g5 here. I'm sorry. After b3, bishop b1. I think he should have taken. I looked at the wrong line here in my notes. He played h6, but probably bishop takes g5 was somewhat better. Yeah. Now white probably recaptures if you take here. Let's say queen b6, attacking the rook should be quite okay for black. So let's say here, and now of course you can have this funny situation. If you go here, rook c5 leads to an interesting position, but cleaner is probably just to play the knight back. Knight f3, and then well, probably queen to b6 or a move of that type. This is a cause for concern. The b3 pawn is somewhat weak, but still it was better than the game, I think. In the game he played h6, and after this there was knight e4. And well, this is a double attack on the knight, and black really does not have any big alternatives to the capture, which happened. D takes. Yeah, rook takes is not really great. It also has the problem that it keeps the bishop boxed in. So this. And now we see the problem. The b3 pawn is actually very difficult to defend here. Karjakin gave it up in this way, and is now basically a pawn down for not so clear compensation, really. It's a bit of a weird part of the game now, because I really have a hard time to understand what's happening now, to be perfectly honest. Here in this position, I mean, what black is doing is clear. He wants to get some play against the b2 pawn. What else is there to attack? So it would be, at least in my book, perfectly natural to play the move b4 now, to, let's say, to just get this, this pawn away from being attacked all the time, cover it. Of course, black will play a5, but yeah, let's say something like that. I mean, white should be somewhat better here, shouldn't he? I mean, it's 2 pawns at the moment. You will lose a5, but let's say queen c5, for example. Shouldn't this be a slight advantage for white? Yeah, I think it should be a bit better for white. He played a rook to d1, okay, attacking on d4, but, well, b2 is just under so much fire now. What exactly is white doing here? I mean, you cannot really take here. This looks really awkward. He played rook to e2, and now white is somewhat getting a bit passive here, just defending the b2 pawn all the time. It's yeah, I don't like it. I mean, maybe b4 and a5 was ultimately equalizing for black at the end, but this just gives up any initiative that white may had. Black now has huge compensation for the pawn. Yeah, and here in this position, I think probably he should go bishop to d3, because, well, he played queen c1, and this allowed an interesting exchange sacrifice for Karjakin, and he played that. He took on f3, and this is just a very strong move, which white probably should have prevented. Yeah, why is this strong? I mean, white must capture, and queen takes. And now we have a position, if we do a quick count, black has got 6 pawns, white's got 6 pawns, black has a whole exchange down, but it's still a very, very good position for black now, because white has absolutely no play. This queen has this play on the dark squares. There is a possible knight e5 coming later, attacking on f3, and white has an absolutely terrible bishop on b1. This is now a very one-sided position, and very, very tough to play in a practical game. We see that in the next couple of moves, this knight e5 business really happened. And it's almost impossible for white now to even keep the exchange. I mean, this is an additional problem. He played a rook c2 here. It seems that he should have played king g2, giving the exchange back in this way. After rook c2, he got into some trouble, because the rook now is joining on the 5th rank, and this spells trouble. He needed to play h4, covering on g5. Not a happy move. Maybe he should have tried rook c8, check. But it's just so ugly. I mean, it's just such an ugly position. Look at that. Okay. Yeah, and now where are you going with your queen? I mean, you can try to go back, but this will
check
lead to a total disaster. You have such a bad piece coordination that you will win here. You will lose here with stuff like that.
Check.
This won't end well. Knight g2 mate threatened. Yeah, just a very bad position, and very unharmonious. So this is why he went h4. Bishop to b7. Yeah, probably bishop c6 was even a bit stronger, and very tough for white to defend, as mentioned, especially in in a practical game. This bishop on c6 is just a move to get it out from this check on c8, so that black actually threatens to take. Bishop b7 has a similar idea, but white hangs on. I mean, it's not like he's losing outright. It's just such an uncomfortable position to play. Black got the exchange back and now put pawns on dark squares, which is, of course, from a strategical point of view, very sensible. Maybe here this queen g3 move wasn't the toughest. He could have played queen to g4, at least getting the queens off. This is helping the king, but the long-term prospects are still quite tricky. White has those badly placed pawns. Black will probably get the bishop over here. It's also a very one-sided endgame. Yeah, well, he decided to play queen g3. Maybe he still should have gone for the endgame. It's very tricky to find the best defense in this type of position, simply because you're worse in any sort of position, and to determine what's actually the best defense is very, very tough. Yeah, now this is coming. Rook f6 and rook f4. Yeah, the endgame with queen g4 certainly was very uncomfortable, but this is not much fun as well. Aronian was certainly hoping that this move that he actually had played is helping him, which of course is true. It's without this he would even be completely busted. But after rook takes,
check,
and these moves, it's still all the fun is for black here. He can always try to improve play against this weak king, and the only counterplay that white has is this 2 against 1. So maybe at some point the b pawn can provide for some counterplay. We can fast forward a bit and see that white actually got the pawn going, but black of course still has some more things to try against the king. Yeah, I'm going through this rather quickly. It is possible to do even a more thorough analysis of this part of the game. It's I think simply that black is trying to improve slightly, not trying to spoil anything, and tries to probe to create more weaknesses. White has gotten the b pawn, but it's not going anywhere. b6 is just protected, and black is simply taking his time and hoping that with time going down, there is some sort of breakdown. Yeah, just trying to maneuver, improving and probing. And in fact, a couple of moves later, Aronian is committing a mistake. We will see this soon. Here, it seems that he should have played queen to g2. King to d2, king to g2 was played. Is probably not not a playable move anymore. Now this bishop is attacked, and you have some problems to really move it. If you consider this was the problem, and if you go here, there is this idea threatening rook h4 and rook h3. Yeah, what a position. Look at this, trapping the queen. Yeah, this is what he tried, rook to h1, but after rook h4 it's impossible anymore to avoid material loss. He gave away the bishop on e2.
Check.
Still tried a couple of moves, hoping for the b pawn, and certainly simply so disappointed by the whole course of the tournament.
Check.
Yeah, I'm quite
Check.
amazed that they played that far. Yeah, and H2 now. Aronian resigned after 94 moves, so a very long game in this final round of the tournament. Yeah, I actually made this analysis quite brief. I must say that I also had a 6-hour game today, which was quite tough, and I couldn't really bring up the time to analyze 90 moves in great detail. Maybe there was more to look at in this kind of maneuvering phase. It's always quite interesting to see how to improve those kind of positions very slowly. But I didn't really have the opportunity and patience to do a very thorough analysis for this game, especially considering that it was not relevant anymore for the final result really of the tournament. I mean, in terms of determining the challenger. So I hope you still enjoyed the coverage. It basically led to Karjakin taking second place, by the way, with a +1 score, and Aronian even dropping to second to last place, I believe. Maybe he's not on the 7th place, but on 6th place. I'm not quite sure about the tiebreak routes in this aspect, but he's on a -1 score, which certainly is a huge disappointment. If you look at his results before the tournament and expectations, it certainly was not what he had hoped for. All right, I hope you enjoyed the game. Thanks for watching.